So let's continue on with the discussion of the rule. And the rule is basically the law that applies in the situation. And sometimes there's one, sometimes there's many. But it's the rule explains what law applies, and because that's what it comes down to. An issue question in the law is not looking for your opinion. It's looking for an application of the law to the facts and how would that turn out. And so questions about the way you think about it or the way you feel about it, pretty much irrelevant. What does the law say? What are the facts? How do those go together? That's what we're looking for in an IRAC essay. So, an example in the Dick and Jane scenario is that a contract may have existed there. And we know, or you'll find out later in the quarter if you decide that contract law is something you want to study, that a contract requires an offer, acceptance, and consideration. And you know, most laws can be broken down into a formula like this. You know, if you've got 1, 2, and 3, if you've got offer, acceptance, and consideration, you have a contract. When you have a contract, if that promise, if the promise made in that offer and acceptance, the promise to exchange one thing for another in consideration for something else, if that promise is broken, you've got to breach a contract, you've got to break the law. So let's see what that would look like in the analysis. So if we've got the issue, did Dick breach this contract? The rule, here's what a contract is. The analysis is, here's the situation. Dick offered to sell Jane the bed. Jane accepted that bed. So you got offer, you got acceptance. Jane goes with the money in hand, which would have been the consideration. But Jane hasn't actually given the money to Dick yet. Since there has been no exchange, the consideration has not changed hands, we don't actually have a contract here. And because there was no contract, Jane can't sue because Dick did not breach the contract. Because you couldn't breach a contract that didn't exist. So you got the offer, you got acceptance, but you don't have any consideration. There was no contract, thus Dick couldn't breach it. So that's your analysis. You're applying the facts to the law. You want to be complete. You don't want to say, well, obviously there was an offer, because sometimes it's not obvious. And if you just assume things, you may miss something. So you want to be very thorough as you're going through and applying the fact to the law. Don't skip anything. Don't jump over anything. You want to be complete. Please note that the analysis is really the heart of your IRAC essay. This should be the longest, most substantive area of your essay, and this is really where you want to let your knowledge of the law shine. This is the strong area here. So this is where all your energy should go, is really developing the analysis section. When you're all done with that, then you go on to the conclusion. And the conclusion simply answers the question presented in the issue. So our question was, did Dick breach the contract when he sold the bed to somebody besides Jane? And the answer, the conclusion is no. Dick didn't breach the contract because no contract existed, because there had been no exchange of consideration. So you want to be specific. There shouldn't be any new information in the conclusion. It should be perfectly obvious what you're going to say in the conclusion from what you said in the analysis. So there should be nothing, there should be no surprise ending in an IRAC essay. There should be, and the conclusion should be relatively short. I've seen people, students really want to shift all of the detail into the conclusion. No, all the detail belongs in the analysis. The conclusion is really just a very cursory wrap-up of what you already said. And if you find yourself saying something new in the conclusion, then you need to rewrite your analysis, because that's where that information is. And remember, it should be brief. If you can do all of those things, you'll probably have an ideal IRAC essay, and all will be well.